So after everything that went down in No Way Home, the biggest question in the entire MCU hasn't been about the multiverse or Kang. Nope. It's been about a single kid in a homemade suit swinging through a snowy New York. What on earth happens to Peter Parker when literally no one remembers who he is? Okay, let's get into it and break down everything we know about his next chapter.
Right, so let's just quickly set the scene again. The end of No Way Home, it was brutal. In this massive act of self-sacrifice, Peter gets Doctor Strange to cast a spell that makes everyone, and I mean everyone, MJ, Ned, Happy, all the Avengers, completely forget he ever existed. Poof, he's a ghost, a total stranger to the people he loves most. And that's the question, isn't it? The one that's been hanging over all of us for years now. Where do you even go from there? How do you tell a story when your hero has basically been deleted from the world? For the very first time, the MCU's Spider-Man is truly, completely, 100% on his own. This leads us right into the whole foundation for the next movie. This isn't just some clever plot twist they'll undo in the first 10 minutes. It's the entire premise. We're starting in a world that has a Spider-Man but has no idea who Peter Parker is.
And look, if you had any doubt that they were going to stick with this, the head of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, came right out and confirmed it. He called it a momentous decision, which is his way of saying, yeah, we're not backing down. The fourth movie isn't hitting a reset button. It's going to explore every single consequence of that choice. So, to be super clear, this isn't a retcon, it is the plot.
But man, getting to this news story has been anything but simple. The journey to get a fourth Spider-Man movie off the ground has been a long, winding road full of delays and a whole lot of uncertainty. And a huge piece of that uncertainty was Tom Holland himself. He was really open about his hesitation, you know? He said things like if he was still playing Spider-Man in his 30s, he'd feel like he'd done something wrong. He's just really protective of the character. And he basically said he would only come back if they found a story that could truly do justice to the character. And this timeline really shows you what a roller coaster it's been. Talks for a whole new trilogy kicked off right after No Way Home back in 2021, but they immediately ran into Tom Holland's own doubts. Then, just as the writers were cooking up some big ideas in 2023, bam, the Writers Guild strike brings everything to a screeching halt. It really took some major moves, like locking in a director and finally announcing a title to get this thing back on track for its 2026 release.
But now, with all those delays finally in the rearview mirror, a really powerful new team is starting to come together. And it's this awesome mix of familiar faces and fresh blood.
So at the helm, we've got Destin Cretton, who just did an incredible job with Shang-Chi. The writing team is Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, the same guys who wrote the entire Home trilogy, so you know that character voice is going to be consistent. And yes, after all the questions and scheduling worries, it is confirmed. Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Jacob Batalon are all coming back.
Now, this is where it gets really juicy. The new cast choices tell you everything you need to know about the film's tone. Jon Bernthal is back as the Punisher. I mean, that's the perfect, violent foil for a street-level Spidey. Then you've got Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, which is a fascinating choice. Is he going to be the new mentor figure for Peter? And finally, we are finally getting the payoff to that post-credit scene from way back in Homecoming. Michael Mando is back as Scorpion.
And the cast just keeps getting better. We've got Sadie Sink from Stranger Things and the amazing Liza Colon-Zayas from The Bear joining in some pretty big but still secret roles. And then, of course, there's the rumor that just makes so much sense for a story like this. Charlie Cox is widely expected to be back as Matt Murdock. You know, Daredevil.
So, you take all of this, the cast, the director, the setup, and it all points to one massive and frankly, really exciting change for this new movie. We're talking about a total shift in scale and stakes.
Just look at this side by side. The contrast is night and day. The Home trilogy was all about global, world-ending threats, right? And Peter was kitted out with all this advanced Avengers tech. Brand New Day is swinging the complete opposite way. We're talking street-level crime, a homemade suit, and a hero who is a complete nobody, mentored by no one. And this isn't just us reading between the lines. Kevin Feige said this was the whole promise of No Way Home's ending, to finally show us a proper Spider-Man fighting street-level crime. It's exactly why they're bringing in characters like the Punisher.
It's a very deliberate choice to ground this hero and show us a side of Spider-Man we've never really gotten to see in the MCU. So what about that title, Brand New Day? Well, for anybody who reads the comics, those 3 words, they carry a lot of weight. And yeah, a little bit of controversy too. Okay, so in the comics, Brand New Day was the big storyline that happened right after another one called One More Day. And in that story, Peter makes a deal with the literal devil, Mephisto, to save Aunt May's life. The price? His marriage to Mary Jane gets erased from existence and the world forgets he's Spider-Man. Now, it is one of the most controversial comic arcs of all time for basically wiping out decades of character development, but it did succeed in getting Spidey back to a classic, back-to-basics feel. So the million-dollar question is, how much is the movie going to borrow from that? Is the title just a thematic nod to Peter's fresh start? I mean, the MCU already figured out how to make the world forget him without needing a deal with a demon? Or could they be planning to adapt other parts of that infamous storyline? Well, the path is set. We're getting a new, more grounded chapter for our hero. And the good news is we don't have to wait an eternity to see how it all plays out. Go ahead and mark your calendars because Spider-Man Brand New Day is set to swing into theaters on July 31st, 2026. And that leaves us with this final big thought. The home trilogy turns Spider-Man into an Avenger, a guy who saved the world, even the universe. Now, with no friends, no fancy tech, and no identity, can he actually go back to his roots? Can a hero that the world has totally forgotten about really become that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man again? We're about to find out.